Honestly, it's bad enough that Scott has to deal with 7 evil exes, but imagine if that number was even higher, like let's say 13. It's like, no, no, honey, Jason can take care of your issues for you, but I'm personally good off that. Directed by the one and only Edgar Wright, Scott Pilgrim vs. the World is an action rom-com that stars our titular character Scott Pilgrim, who somehow dreams about and later manifests into his Toronto life a girl, and then pretty much seeks out, tries to find her, and tries to date the girl. The girl, who's played by Mary Elizabeth Winstead, an absolute timeless babe, plays the character Ramona Flowers, who has never in her life at any point in time given her exes, the much needed closure that they probably should have had at some point in their relationship. And so now inevitably Sky, when he wants to date Ramona, he has to quite literally and figuratively step up to the plate, start swinging, and see if he can handle Ramona's baggage. Now I've always wanted to talk about this film personally. I've seen it numerous times over and over here and there, and it felt like there was no better time to do it than now, just because this film is actually coming up on its 10-year anniversary. That's right, it came out in August of 2009. I actually was in 8th grade when this film first came out, and I remember when it first started coming out, the trailers were leaking on YouTube and all that. 13-year-old me had no idea that this movie is actually based off a comic book, so the only thing that really winded me over was the action sequences that they showed, as well as Mary Elizabeth Winstead. Now, when it came out, I went and saw it. Lo and behold, I contributed 12 hard-earned my parents' income dollars to that $48.1 million box office bomb. So with everything said, again, it's 10 years later, and how does the film still hold up to its weight at this point? I personally think it's one of the finest experimental action movies of the last 2010s decade, in that it's thoroughly enjoyable. I can always say this, it's not a masterful film, but it is always thoroughly enjoyable in that it always has a high rewatch value. Now, if we also did place this maybe in like the category of best video game movies within that little subgenre against, Tomb Raider, Silent Hill, Sonic, Super Mario Brothers, I think Scott Pilgrim is definitely up there, top tier, maybe number 1. So, why does this movie still hold up so well after all this time? The movie has what I always consider this incredible flair to its boundless ideas, as well as it always had a very distinguishable narrative that always just keeps the movie flowing, as well as on a very good pace alongside that. And what I mean by its flair and narrative structure is that there are so many creative things that they implemented consistently throughout the film that just work so well. For example, with the onomatopoeia sounds that always just came up whenever someone did a little action, no matter how minuscule it was, it'll say something. Or the almost seamless forms of transitions that always just keep things afloat, whether it'll just be a quick abrupt cut with a little dialogue to show you where it's at or what happened very quickly. It never bridges or breaks apart the main storyline, it doesn't fragment it whatsoever. And not only that, but the tone of the movie is very spunky, it's eccentric, it's lighthearted humor that always just hits and hits and hits. Now, one of the things I wanted to really touch base on with this review for the film is when you watch a film, there's always this general suspension of belief in that, let's say you're watching a sci-fi, you can't actually think that some of these things that are going on as a viewer are real or could realistically happen or even exist in the future. Regardless, in this film, for example, that suspended belief works on an audience-based level, but it also is implemented into the movie itself through the character. And what I mean by that is, let's say whenever a fight breaks out in the film, it's usually in a public setting, which is absolutely hilarious, because the fact that everyone around Scott and Scott's friends and all that, everyone just watches these fights in total shock, awe, disbelief, like, is this happening? Y'all seeing this?
This is happening, right? Oh yeah. Kick her in the balls!
But I love that just because you as a viewer also have to accept the fact that, oh yeah, it was all willy-nilly, all normal for 30 minutes, and all of a sudden the X's start flying down through the buildings, causing all this mayhem, all this extracurricular fight, and you just have to accept that now it's just a video game-esque movie. And I personally always love the Katayanaga twin battle scene with the two groups doing a battle of the bands. And really, this movie is just a big battle of the bands film in general. But I always love this action sequence in general because it's so flashy, energetic, full of life. And now, lastly, the characters. The characters are so damn good in this movie. Even though some characters have very limited screen time or just very limited dialogue to work with, all of these characters really stick out after you watch this film. They all leave a mark, and you have your two stars, as I said, Scott Pilgrim and Ramona Flowers. Scott Pilgrim, main protagonist, you want him to win. You want him to win the girl, Ramona, at the end. And yet, Scott Pilgrim is kind of an anti-hero. He's kind of a piece of shit, if you really get down to it. He exhibits POS behavior in that he follows Ramona at a party excessively, he treats Knives badly, he disregards his band's rehearsals or his bandmates' feelings or their ambition to grow bigger. He treats Ramona badly, he cheats on both of them really at the end. Scott is not a good guy.
Listen, I was thinking we should break up or whatever.
Really?
Yeah.
Ramona, not a great girl either. I mean, she has all this baggage after, what, like she said the first guy was 7th grade and now they're in post-college. At least a good 10 years of baggage that she never tried to fix. Ever? You have Neo who's trying to be the next Scott and it's like, dude, just give it a rest. Nobody wants you to be doing that. You have Knives who plays one of the weirdest, jealous character women roles of all time, possibly. And then everyone else, still, like all the supporting characters and the exes have a great recurring role. You have Wallace, who's the actual superstar of the film, in my opinion. Great role, hilarious. You got Anna Kendrick, who just plays herself, really. You got the exes. You have Far East Movement, Chris Evans before he became a whiny little girl. You have the experimental phase, Vegan's only superhero thus far in film, the annoying ex from middle school that you don't want to talk about. Anyways, all in all, Scott Pilgrim vs. the World, it's a timeless gem. It's creative, it's exhilarating, it's fun, the characters are so damn memorable. Everyone can at least leave, if you really aren't a true hater, at least leave this movie with something that you enjoy thoroughly that the director or someone else picked for this design for the movie. I give Scott Pilgrim vs. the World an 8.5 out of 10, and I also claim that it is a certified hit as well.